All right, we're live. Give me just a second to share this around. All right, for those of you that just joined, give us just a few. We're trying to get things shared. All right, sorry about that. See if get Ralph back on here. Looks like he's freezing up. You hear Ralph?
Is that any better?
Yes, it sounds better. Looks like it's not lagging. Um, so Chris, I'll call you whenever we get done here. For some reason, it didn't go through. All right, Ralph. So this week we have a special guest, Kyle. Kyle, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, a little history of your tracking experience, and all that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in North Alabama. Live in a little town called Arab, about an hour north of Birmingham, 30 minutes south of Huntsville. And so yeah, I'm sort of in a little bit of a dry place for hunting. Seems like I always have to drive to West Alabama or something, to track. End up driving a lot, but yeah. So I've been in the game like maybe 7 or 8 years. I've always hunted all my life, but I've only been tracking deer about 7 or 8 years. But man, I sure love it. I fell in love with it. So.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. What kind of dogs you run?
So, most of mine are a cross between Catahoula and Blackmouth Cur. They go back to a old line of cow dogs. They're kind of here in my neck of the woods. A lot of old cow catchers use this line of dogs, and found out a couple of them made pretty good hog dogs and track dogs, and so that's what I've got. Just old cur dogs. Nothing, I guess. A lot not be impressed, but I'll take them. So.
Oh, I like a cur dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, looks like we're gonna lose Ralph. He's driving, so his signal's probably cutting in and out. He forgot about us, even though I reminded him like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so I saw your video you shared today, man. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I just got a wild hair last night or yesterday afternoon to sit around and I was called chores, so sat around and tinkered with it and turned out all right, I guess. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
anything to do with dogs keeps my mind occupied. So.
That's right. And you and I, we've been conversing for quite a few years now, back and forth. Sharing stuff and asking questions and tips and all that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of questions through the years that, I don't know. You it's always good to help other folks. I said, well, I've got a question. I'll see if he'll help me. And you were always really generous. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. And you sent someone to me the other day that was having a little bit of obedience issues with their dog, and it looks like he's getting it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah. Tracking community about that, anyways. So.
Oh yeah. Hey, welcome back, Ralph.
Yeah, I can't get it to work except on Bluetooth. So hopefully it get better here. Connection was terrible.
Yeah. So Kyle, when's y'all season open up?
So in Alabama, we've got like 5 zones. There's a couple smaller areas, Zone D and E. They open up October the 1st. Most of the state opens up October 15th. So we're so chomping at the bit, ready to go.
Oh yeah, we're about a week and a half out.
Yeah.
Which I get to do some tracking year round and some high fences, so I'm pretty fortunate there.
Yeah. Yeah, I in my mind, I want to do it all year. It's just, man, when it gets so miserably hot, I'm like, yeah, I can wait till fall. So
that's kind of how I've been with my fishing the last month. I'm like, I've just had enough. I need a break from it. It's miserable. It pays the bills, but
yeah,
I had to tap out.
Yeah, I understand.
So, speaking about cur dogs, Ralph, you just got your cur dog, didn't you?
He's what?
I said you just got a cur dog, didn't you?
Yes, sure did.
How you liking her?
Doing good so far. I haven't really put her on track, but I know better. I know. I gotta watch her. She come from that Mullins bloodline.
Hey, if she's anything like her mama, she'll be, or actually no, like her sister, mom, and dad.
Yep.
She'll be all right.
Yep.
Cause she came off of Sam and Zena.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Hey, I forgot. I saw a special little camera holder. Somebody showed me. Hey.
That was something I just come up with and tried, and it worked really good. So a lot of folks asking for them. So
looks like you might have a side gig.
I don't have time for it. It's a flat piece of a scrapple, and I don't have time to make $2 a piece off of them.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I'm glad to help anybody that wants one. Yeah, I'll do my best. But,
so Kyle, we had a question for you. I know what Ralph's trying to do, but I got a question for you here. Michael Beck says, Kyle, have you always ran off lead or experienced with both?
I would say like 98% of the time is off lead. I mean, there's been I also fine on lead, but I mean, like if it's real tight tracking, or we've got a few management areas, or like the Wheeler Wildlife Refuge, they require you to be on lead, things like that. But man, I just don't enjoy tracking on lead. It just and so yeah, I guess the short answer is pretty much off lead. I can put a long rope on one if I got to get by with it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am, man. I will track on lead. We always train on lead, and I always will. But if I can cut that thing loose and get rid of the dope at the end of that rope, and let the dog do what it does, I mean, too many people try to control the dog, and I don't care how good your nose is, you ain't smelling what that dog's smelling.
Yeah, that's been my experience. My young dogs, I'll always like you said, and I think, as a matter of fact, I think I got that from you, if I can remember back that far. But my young dogs, I always do the same. I'll start them on lead.
So we had another question from Vicky Church. Says, how far do the dogs range, and do you hog hunt with them?
No, I don't hog hunt. Where I'm at, we don't have any hogs. I would love to hog. I've been hog hunting, and I would love to have hog dogs, but we just don't have hogs here. as far as they'll range, man, they'll go as far as it takes, or until I hit the tone button. Um, I mean, they most of the time don't turn around and come back. I mean, they hit the trail, and they will track to the deer. Um, there are exceptions, like roads. So many times he won't hardly cross a road. So sometimes he'll sit there and wait on me. If I don't get there fast enough, he may backtrack to me, or something like that. But man, they'll get out of GPS range pretty often. Which where I'm at, I can only get about a mile. So I have got that far. Which we have a lot of big woods. Um, over here too, a lot of big timberland. 10,000 acre plots of land, things like that. But yeah, they'll go a long ways for sure.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate in my area. We got one private landowner he owns 560,000 acres.
Yeah,
and he leases it all out for hunting. And I got a pretty good relationship with all of them. So if we get on one, we need room. We got it.
Yeah. It's hard to go that far, just because of roads and stuff, and I'll end up having to talk that, but yeah, they'll go until I tell them not to most of the time.
Yeah. What about you, Ralph? How far your dogs range out?
If they're on the track, as far as the deer goes, but just ranging, hunting, looking, probably about 150 yards. If they go past that, I usually know they're on it. But we hunt in such urban areas that I can't. At least my little dogs, I can watch them a little closer because we're half the time, like in Lake City or whatever, we're hunting city blocks that are just on the outskirts of town. We've found some nice deer in the little areas where nobody bothers them, but you better watch them because you got hard roads on all four sides. So we just watch it. But if they get on a deer, shoot, they ain't stopping for me unless I tell them, unless I told them or something. They're going.
Yeah, I was tracking in Lake City about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. Actually, it's been more than that now, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And we were on a 40-acre block that was completely surrounded by highway. And we were tracking on lead because of that. And the deer got up in front of us, and I knew that we could get that deer. And after circling that 40 acres for about the 8th time, I was like, all right, I've had enough. I'm cutting them loose. And I just watching close, staying on that tone button. And luckily we shut it down. That was an eye-opening thing because I literally dispatched that deer and watched it go stiff in front of my eyes within 5 minutes. I want to bring that up because so many people think, oh, it's been stiff, it's been dead a while. That thing was stiff in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that, Kyle?
Yeah. I've seen it a few times for sure.
Yeah, it's so Vicky says property lines not an issue. Well, they are. Yeah, everyone likes to hunt property lines. That's the thing. Some of these hunt clubs where I'm at would be 100,000 acres. They want to hunt the property line.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is. Well, I think it's everywhere, especially management areas. They say, oh, well, I know this person that owns this land over here has a feeder, so I'm going to hunt the property line. And then they never harvest anything.
I had a guy that he walks the property lines because that's where he finds all the hunters. So,
yeah,
I know
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Stacy Frost said she's seen that happen where they go stiff, and that's something you don't hear talked about very much. Tom Hill, again, same thing, But so many times I hear people talk about, trying to determine the time of death based on that. When there's one way that you can tell, and I don't know if you guys know this, but it takes a a caliper to measure it is you can measure their pupils, and the size of the pupil will tell you a pretty close to how long that deer's been dead. The other way is through body temperature. But most of the time we don't need to get that technical. There's a few times I have used that though. Al Still says ours goes stiff from freezing solid. So I tracked one in Alabama. Oh man, I don't know, 12 years ago. The guy shot it the night before. This was at Fort Rucker. And we got to it the next day, and it was frozen solid. I mean, solid ice. We were walking across the ditch to go, to get into the woods, and literally walking on solid ice. That was pretty wild for South Alabama.
Yeah.
I got one last year on top of a pond that it was froze. The dogs out there on us, and I was pretty confident it wasn't going to hold my 230, but so I didn't get out there and get it. But we let the hunter break the ice to go get that one. That usually doesn't happen here where I'm at, so we don't see those long spurts of cold like that. So.
No, I guess it's about 6 years ago now. I tracked one and the dogs, it hit the river, it crossed the river, and the dogs were right on it. And as soon as it would hit the other bank, it'd turn around and go back. And they did that about 4 times. And I told the guy, I said, hey, when it gets on that bank this next time, shoot it. And it didn't get one hoof on that bank, and he shot it, and it reared up backwards and fell in the river. And it was 29 degrees. And he looked at me and said, I'll give you $50 you jump in there and get that deer for me. I said, I'll give you $50 and leave so I don't have to get in there. But we followed that deer for about a mile, hoping it would hang up in some of the brush on some of those turns, and it never did. I wasn't jumping in that river 29 degrees. I mean, it was his deer, and I had, I think, 6 or 7 other tracks to go on.
Yeah, you learn quick tracking to take extra clothes with you.
Yeah, extra clothes, extra boots, extra socks, everything. Kristen Howard says, I've seen them go stiff pretty fast. Fastest one I ever seen after dispatch was 2 minutes, and he had been shot the morning before, and we tracked it the next morning. He was stiff before the guys got to me to help me, which only took them 2 minutes to get to me. And Damon Chase said the same thing. Bay won last year, and it was stiff instantly. I don't know. I don't know that a lot of the country gets to experience that, just because we do get to track a little different in the South.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Perry Lawrence. What in the world? Perry Lawrence says that water is cold in winter. My son and I know, right, Kenny? So the first time Perry called me, my dogs it was his son's deer. My dogs had it bayed up, and it was. I mean, when you picture thick, think thicker. I mean, it was bad, and they were in water, and I had just had shoulder surgery, so I handed his son my pistol and my GPS, and him and Perry go to the deer, and his son steps off in the ditch and disappears. His hat was floating. And so the deer was only 40 yards in there. So Perry's like, I'm going to come with you. And they got in there about, I don't even know if they made it 20 yards, and there was a big old gator. So we called it right then, called the dogs out, and got away from there.
Wow.
So Michael Beck has another question. It says, what's the camaraderie like between trackers in your state, number of trackers, and such?
Is that to me, I guess?
We'll all answer it. If you want to go ahead, Kyle, you can start with it,
Okay.
and then Ralph and I can answer as well.
Yeah, I think overall, opinion overall camaraderie is pretty good. The tracking world has grown so much. It's hard to be close to someone you don't know. So there is always that, and then you have the more opinions you have, but I don't know if there's like a but there's getting to be a lot. The tracking sites. We have two main ones in Alabama, and there's getting to be a lot of trackers, in every county. But it seems like the ones that are real serious about tracking, especially the ones for more than a couple years, seems like at least the ones that are real serious are reach out to each other and have built a relationship. So overall, I think it's good.
Yeah, and I'll touch on Florida, and I do track in Alabama a little bit, and I track in Georgia quite a bit. I can tell you in Florida, we're a pretty tight group. Do we have our differences? Sure. You're going to. We may not always agree with everyone, but for the most part, we get along. And even the ones that don't get along, if you need something, we're going to be there for you.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people that we had a falling out, and they ran into an issue. I actually called them to take a track not far from my house for me. I was out of town, and their dog was wore out, and I said, "Hey, go by the house and get my dogs and go track it." And they did, and we at the time we weren't hardly talking, but when it came time that they needed help and the hunters needed help, we worked together. And I came back home, and I go to get my truck, and there's $100 bill sitting in my seat. And I'm like, where'd this come from? So then I thought about it. I called them. I said, hey, I wasn't wanting any money. I was helping you out. And they said, nope, we're going to share half the tip with you. We appreciate what you did. And, we have a really, really good network. And I will say, and hopefully I'm not stealing everything Ralph's going to share, the biggest thing that I think that's helped Florida these past few years is we've implemented an apprenticeship and mentorship program, and that has really helped our state. Ralph, you got anything you want to add?
I agree with you. Just like we're fixing to have a cookout over here in Northeast Florida, and if anybody's around South Florida or Southeast Georgia, you're welcome to come to it over at my farm. We all get together right before the season starts. But the apprenticeship program, people think, oh, you're helping everybody. Yeah, but there are some that we keep out of the system. It isn't just a free pass. So we're getting in at the very beginning to make sure everybody's acting correctly and do right, and how they treat the hunters. We watch it pretty darn close. And I think it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. So it's not just about how good you can track. How are you interacting and networking with your fellow trackers, and how what's your customer service like? How are you treating the hunters? And most of the time, if we have to remove someone from the group or they have to be an apprentice another year, the majority of the time, it's their attitudes and how they treat others.
Yeah.
So, we got a comment from Stacy Frost that I need to share because Ralph is just talking about doing the same thing. Stacy says, I'm thinking I am going to start taking a bikini with me. Needed to go into the lake on Velvet Weekend this year. And Stacy, Ralph has been talking about taking a Speedo.
Oh, yeah, right. I should have known something coming.
So Stacy's found a new marketing gimmick there, bikini tracking.
That come from Florida.
Yeah.
That would cost me money.
Yeah. So I want to add about the camaraderie in our states, and I will say, like I said, we are very very close. We like to go on tracks a lot together. Just last year, myself, John Vaughn, Ralph Bennett, Kayla Tyre, Daniel Tyre, we all met up on a track together. We didn't all run all of our dogs. And we do that all the time, pretty regular.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one weekend back when Randy had his health issues, and it was just me and Randy at the time for the most part. We had some new trackers that year. Trent Abbott, his brother Brandon wasn't a tracker, but one weekend they loaded up in the truck with me. Kenton Tedders on a Friday when I got off of work about 4:00. And I tracked until I think it was 8:00 in the morning. Trent and Kenton was with me. I dropped them off, took an hour and a half nap, and Brandon Abbott got in the truck with me, and we tracked all day long till about 4:30 in the morning. Dropped him off, took a nap, got up at 7:30 in the morning, and Trent and Kenton got in the truck with me, and we went tracking again. I mean, we went on. I'm trying to remember. It was over 30 tracks and almost. I think it was right at 35 tracks in 3 days.
Wow.
And you talk about some camaraderie and some bonding and working together. I mean, at one point I was literally falling asleep behind the wheel, and I woke up and Brandon is literally driving the truck from the passenger seat to get it off the road, swap seats.
Wow.
You still have that problem.
I do. I really do. So let me back up. We got to back up. Gene Ferris, Ralph, said no videos of your Speedo. And then Michael Beck said pics or it didn't happen. And Stacy said, come on, we'll go together, Ralph.
Oh, boy.
You ain't got a hair on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what paybacks are.
So Rocky Hollow Tracker said, I would love to see the apprentice program get started for Alabama. I'm telling you, it's the best thing that could have happened for our state. And this year we're rolling it out in Georgia. There's mixed emotions about it in Georgia, but overall, once it gets going and gets started, it's a great thing. I mean, it's the quality of the service to the hunters. It just increases significantly, and you start seeing these young trackers developing a whole lot faster. Kyle, you remember when you started, man? There wasn't as many people. You didn't have all the help that's out there now. You didn't have videos like this and podcasts and.
Yeah, man. I was so fortunate. I feel like I'm one of the most fortunate trackers that there could have ever been. So in North Alabama, like there was 10 years ago, there was literally like just a couple people tracking, and one of the best trackers, I mean, most everybody up here will tell you, but there's a man named Brian Ham, and man, he's just an unbelievable tracker, handler, dogs, and man, it was just a wealth of knowledge. And man, I ran with him for like 2 or 3 years, it seemed like. Matter of fact, the first year I went with him, I never even took a dog. I mean, I just literally went on tracks 2 or 3, 4 times a week with him, and just went, And I'd have my own dog at home, and when I got a chance to work it, that was fine. But I was going with what I can do like a true. He's humble enough; he would never say that. But I felt like I had just a first seat, first row look, at deer tracking the way I wanted to track. And man, I tracked with him for 2 or 3 years. You just and just really really close friends. But it was such a good experience because I learned so much. So I mean, I would learn more in a week than what a lot of trackers just doing it on their own would learn in a month, maybe the whole season. And so going back to the apprenticeship program, we don't have that in Alabama. I could see where it would really, really be a benefit to the hunters and the trackers. I thought maybe, even if we didn't have a full, which I'm for it, but even if we didn't have a full apprenticeship program, even before the trackers list, if they had, if they had somebody that could recommend them or just proof that they had at least reached out to some other trackers in the area so that we at least knew that they did have some kind of, but something like that. But yeah, from my own experience, we didn't have the apprenticeship program like Georgia and Florida, but I sort of went through it myself, on my own, and it was huge. I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add is we do have a lot of new trackers, and I'm in a lot of social media groups across the nation, and one thing I'm starting to see is a lot of frustration regarding new trackers and how they come in on the scene, and they just have bigger egos and try to promote themselves more than they really are. And in one way, I look at it and I say, they're just trying to get into the game.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I'm like, all right, guys, you got to stop. This ain't going to work. You're not going to last, because I know the reality. I mean, you oversell yourself and your reputation. You can't keep that reputation because you're overselling yourself. But then I stopped and thought about it, and this is where all this started years ago. I said, how about instead of just being frustrated with these people and just kind of kicking them the curb, why don't we step in and try to help them? And so that's how the apprenticeship program came out. Ralph and I, we started talking and said, yeah, we got to do something. Let's bring these people in. Let's bring them under our wing and let's shape them to what we need and the tracking community and the hunting community needs. And because
it's never the dog.
Right. Yeah, it's almost never the dogs. It's almost always the handler is the issue. And even if they do have a dog issue, you're able to help them through that.
That's an easy fix.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is I'll explain kind of how our apprenticeship program works. So we require everyone new to the group in Florida to go through the apprenticeship program. I mentored one guy that had 20 years experience, and he's the next county over, and I knew this man's jam up. He's one of the top I've ever seen. He's legit. And when I had to call him and say, hey, man, I need to tag along with you, let's get together, we need to communicate. I didn't want to make that phone call because I knew this guy. And he called me. He said, hey, I got 3 tracks. Come on. And I went out there, and, man, he put on a show. And while I was there, actually, there was 2 other people with him that I got to watch work. And, we just made a night of it, had a good time. We work together now, share tracks back and forth. But what I want to say with our mentorship program and apprenticeship program, you don't have to go on tracks together. Obviously that's a plus. But Ralph, he mentored a person that was almost 6 hours away from him, and now that young man's one of the best trackers in the state. he's been killing it. And Ralph, you did that all over the phone, didn't you?
Yep. And don't take it wrong. I didn't make him the good tracker. We just did it, got him involved, got him up going as far as the system. And he turned out, he's an awesome tracker. Got a great dog, but he's a good tracker too.
Yeah, I'm not saying you made him a good tracker, but I will say this: it started out on social media. It started out a little rocky, and to see his, I guess you'd say his presence change during this whole program and how he conducted himself, man, what a transformation! And yeah, he. And now his reputation is top notch. He does a good job.
Very respected.
So I wanted to share that to say that there's ways of doing it without having to go on tracks together. I mean, just being able to answer that phone. And one thing we tell them, and I just got off the phone with someone earlier who is going to be a mentor for the first time this year. He said, "Well, what do I do?" I said, "Well, when you talk to your apprentice, just say, hey, I want you to start out by if you get a track and you do a phone interview, call me afterwards. Let's discuss it. Let's go over what your thoughts are, what the game plan is. Then if you go on a track, you get into a bind, call me and I'll try to help you out. Then after the track, discuss it, discuss the details, see if there's anything that could have been done differently." And I told him, I said, "You'll probably do that for 8 or 10 tracks, and you'll say, hey, man, just call me when you need me."
Yep.
And and you can know where a person's at from there, and you can help them progress and develop from there. I mean, and it's been
That's
great.
all I did. That with Trevor down south. Just that right there is what all it was. They worked great. I would rather go with somebody just to see it work, but you get to buying that thing sure works.
Yeah. I'm going to get caught up on some comments here for you guys. Michael Beck says, a few short years ago, I couldn't find anyone in PA willing to help. Thank God for Darren, AJ, and the other fellows out of Maryland, which he's talking about Darren Miner and AJ Bartlinski. Two solid guys there. Vicky Church says, I'm in Central PA and willing to help. Kevin, he's asking, where is Ralph's farm? Which part of Southeast Georgia for the meetup? Would love to get involved. I'm a rookie and anxious to learn. It's actually in Callahan, Florida, Kevin.
I'm sorry, I missed his last name.
Hang on. Kevin Wilkie.
All right.
Mike Alguire says, how's it going, y'all? Hey, Mike. Perry Lawrence, he's been a mentor for quite a few. I think he has like 3 this year. Says, I have had a few with me that are awesome trackers. Mike Maynard says, I enjoy tracking with others versus going by myself all the time. And Rocky Hollow Tracker says, I've called Kyle several times for help while I've been learning. You have been a great help. Gene Ferris says, a lot of these people starting, and I believe they're doing it because it's a cool thing to do. Then they stop tracking because they lose too much hunting time. This actually hurts the trackers because we have to go clean up their mess. And I made a post that seemed to ruffle some feathers the other night, and it was talking about it was just, I was laying in bed and sitting there thinking about where the direction that tracking has been going in the past few years. And I don't know if the two of y'all read it, but I'm seeing more and more people who is getting into it thinking that it's just going to be a huge financial. I'm losing my words right now. That they're going to make a lot of money, and their focus is money, money, money. And you know what? I'm not against anyone that charges, so don't take that wrong. What I'm against is that being your focus. The focus should be on the values, which is working your dogs, and helping hunters recover deer. If you put those two things before everything else, the money will come. If it's money you're after. But at the same time, if you focus on those two things, you're not so much worried about the money. It's just a bonus. How do you guys feel?
I operate that way 100% of the time.
Man, my approach. So I don't charge. I'm off tips, donations, whatever. You know, probably the most appreciative. One of the most memorable and enjoyable tracks. A guy called me, and he literally didn't have any money. He gave you something. He gave me a handful of 22 shells. Man, we found his deer, high five, and it was great. But man, my thoughts is sort of like everything else, man. If you'll just be a good person, treat people right, and try to help them, it'll all work out. You know, I mean, I don't do it for the money. You know, I usually come out a little ahead. You know, I don't make enough to buy a new truck at the end of the year, but you know, it helps out. But I've never really done it for the money at all. I genuinely enjoy tracking, enjoy helping folks.
Some of my best tips was not money. It was that a little girl brought me a picture to my office that she drew after I found her deer, and I got it framed. That was one of my favorite I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, so it ain't about all that. That was cool as could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
and like Randy Vick said right here, he said, if it quits being fun, you're done. You know, and I'm just going to be real. If you're in this for the money, it's not going to be fun, because you're going to realize quick the return on your investment is not there, and you're out there in swamps and water, briars, cut up, you know, sweating, freezing.
Stop! You're getting me excited.
Don't watch Kyle's video. Then you're really going to be.
Yeah, I saw.
So I want to back up because this is. I know we were bouncing around a little bit, but a bunch of comments are coming in with this apprentice stuff that I think we need to touch on because this seems to be a hot topic right here. Kristen Howard says the apprenticeship program is a good step in Florida. I've worked with a few new trackers that are now listed and wish it was a thing when I started. I know we all could have benefited from it. And that's true. I mean, and honestly, being a mentor is very rewarding, and you will learn a lot yourself.
Yeah.
Stacy Frost says a big problem up here is it makes all trackers look bad when they take dogs out that won't track at all and charge all these people money. And again, I mean that apprenticeship program helps curb that. You know, TR Pate says there is several great folks in Bama that will be more than willing to help. What area you're in? I know I've helped TR over the years. Many times. I mean, every year he'll call me multiple times, send me pictures of blood. People from all over the country send me stuff or call me, and I help. Michael Pritz says, when I first started for the public, I was worried I wasn't doing enough. And there again, that's Michael started before we had the apprenticeship program, and you know, I can tell you it's helped. I mean, it's built some good relationships.
Yeah, I think of what tracking is, you know, when they're sort of on the outside looking in. But then when you get a chance to go with someone that's serious and proven, a lot of times I think it opens their eyes. You know, like there's more to it than pulling up, throwing the dog on the ground. It often finds a deer. Like there's way more to it than that, and it takes a long time to get a dog to that point. You know, and so I don't know. I think a lot of times folks just they don't have the right expectations. So I think
right.
maybe the apprenticeship program would help with that for sure.
Oh yeah. And Matt Berger says, just knowing you have someone you can call and consult without fear of being judged is huge. It doesn't have to necessarily be face to face. Exactly. Now, Gene Ferris has a question here, and this is one we have dealt with many times over the years. What do you do when the person you're helping goes around lying about the tracks? To me, it makes it very hard for me to trust. Ralph, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, we have a come to Jesus meeting
Yep.
right then, right now, and that dictates based off of their attitude whether it progresses to the next level or not. And
right.
some have gone forward, some are no longer with us. So that we're going to set the ground rules quick, and so I don't know what else to say other than that. Every situation is different, but that's the overlying reason why we're doing the apprenticeship program. And that comes back to what you said earlier. It seems to always be the tracker that or the person, and that's what we're watching out for. That's what we're really, honing in on, because that either makes or breaks us, and it makes all of us look bad. Whether treating bad, just I don't know. There's a handful of stuff that we run across every year. So I would say, like that particular situation, probably not going to make it, just because their ego's getting in the way, and that's not a good thing to have.
No, and I'll add to that. When you have an apprenticeship program like this, it really builds team building, networking, and that's actually part of the requirements. We want you to also reach out to your fellow trackers. Well, when you start building the bonds that this program creates, someone like that will not last because they start telling lies or bad mouthing other trackers. Guess what? We're a tight knit group. Even if we're not getting along at the time, we're not going to stand for that. And that person's going to be gone. And they ain't going to get tracks.
Yeah, that networking can help you or hurt you.
Yep. Yeah, TR Pate says, Kenny, you have always been great. I know we have talked numerous times about odd things, or I had a question. Michael Bragg, I like this right here. He said, entitlement seems to be a big problem in the tracking community. You have trackers with 2 to 5 years experience that may recover 30 deer a year, and they believe they deserve the same standing as those that have been doing this for 20 years. That's where the little clique group of trackers come from. They're the ones always complaining about the rookie handlers, yet never reach out to help bring them along and show them the ropes. That's spot on. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but I made a post a month ago talking about the trackers with 2 to 3 years experience all over social media and giving advice, and they just, so some of them get big heads, and they find they have a decent season, and reality they don't know what they're doing yet. I mean, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying it's all trackers that have been tracking 2 to 3 years, but that seems to be that time where egos kick in. And I'm just going to say it. I was that person at one time, and don't be me.
And I think a lot of times in that scenario where you're out in the woods, there's a lot of people that don't want to call to anybody. Man, we're eager to help. And I've got one of my best buddies. He calls me something stumping, and he called. We'll talk it through. Next thing you know, he's found the deer, and it was something changed during the process or during the track, and it just stumped him. It's okay. He calls me. It all worked out. It's okay. That's what the camaraderie gets you, and that's what working with the network gets you. You're not going to get into somebody's ran across it before. You're not going to run into something that nobody's seen, in the big scheme of things. So, I mean, I've called you before and said, what the heck is this? And, that other guys I thought it was saying long, and it's not. It's blood coming out of the nose. Well, I don't have that problem anymore. Now I know what that looks like. And I had just never ran across it. Well, that's what you get with all this stuff. It's kind of like a big package. The people that don't hone into that, you're missing out, because they don't need to get the credit. They let you get it. You look good to your customer out there, which is the hunter. Utilize it. It's good.
Yeah, and we had I got something else I'll bring up in a little bit. We had a question come in. Kyle, what's your average tip, would you say?
I'd say if 100 to 50. I mean, oddly enough, man, you get a bigger tip if you find the deer. If I don't find the deer, I'm there longer and work harder, but most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I'd say average 100, 250. I mean, it sometimes more than that, but it's whatever.
That's right. What about you, Ralph? What would you say your average tip is?
I would have said the exact same thing.
Yeah, mine's about the same as well. Many times, probably the majority of the time, if I charged a fee and some of the average fees that I see out there, I'd lose money. And again,
there's no doubt. I hear these guys that say that, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to charge. I'll take my tips.
Yeah, and most of the time I give my tips away to the people that's with me, that's helping me. Other trackers that's working with me. I mean,
hold on, I ain't never got a tip from you.
Neither have I. No. But yeah, it's. I just love doing it. Michael Beck has a question. It says, do the state groups charge the trackers a fee for tracks that they acquire either through the group or self-promotion? Is there an apprenticeship fee? I can tell you our state group does not charge a fee at all. Not an apprenticeship fee, no kind of fees. What about your state groups, Kyle?
No, there's no fees or anything like that.
And I know in some parts of the country, there's some organizations that do have fees, but they also provide liability insurance. Some of them charge a fee based on services that they provide in return through marketing, or it's to each their own. Our states don't do that, and Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama has been they're the oldest state networks out there, and it's just how it's always been. And it's we've all always been voluntary. So Sam McNair says, what can we do to get the apprenticeship program going? Just sharing and communicating on my page to help educate all the hunters that follow my page. If your state group, or even if you want to do it as an individual, we've got all the documents, all the documentation that we do. We will gladly provide that. Pennsylvania is actually using our program right now. So we'll gladly share that information with anyone that wants it. It's a great thing. Mike Alleguire says, I have had people say up front, I don't have any cash to tip, but I really need help. I showed up, we found his deer, and he offered me some meat, and I refused. I never take meat from hunters, and this man literally started having tears run down his face and said, I really appreciate that. He told me he had just lost his job and was trying to feed his family until he could get another job. And that right there tends to pull on your heartstrings. Then later in the year, he needed help again. I showed up, no hesitation. He tipped way more than I could have imagined. He thanked me for what I did for him and said, "Take this." Back on my feet and in good shape again. That's my number one reason I don't charge, because you just never know what someone is going through. I know I've had the same thing happen. I'm sure you have as well, Kyle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never wanted money to be the deciding factor on whether someone asked me to track their kid's first deer, or any deer for that matter. But so that's why I don't. And a lot of times, if I don't find the deer, most of the time, if I don't find the deer, I don't take it. It's kids, I don't take any money,
Right.
But like I said, the money really doesn't matter to me that much.
No, TR Pate made a good comment right here, something that I think we need to touch on. This is actually what I said I was going to bring up. He said, I've noticed most of your number chasers will be the ones you need to watch. And I think numbers has really been the downhill slope in the tracking community. And I'm just going to say I'm guilty of it. I was so proud that first year I had 100 on the tailgate, and then 130, then 170, bumping 180. I was a number chaser. I mean, I was going on every track there was. We didn't have as many trackers back then, but even then, the year before last, we had 176 on the tailgate by the first week of December. And I never shared that. I didn't share that till after season. Ralph tailgated 130 something deer. We lost him. He must have lost signal, but he tailgated 130 something deer last year. He never said a word till season was over with. And it's, I don't know about Alabama. I do, but I'm going to let you speak on that. But that's been a big issue in Florida and Georgia.
Yeah. It's not an issue for me. My job don't let me track that many. So I have a full-time job, and I don't track on Sundays. I'm in church on Sundays, and I really don't even track late on Saturday night. So that cuts out a whole lot of tracks for me. But yeah. I mean, there's some. I mean, and this may be another topic, but I think I was measuring, self. What I look at if I'm trying to grade myself is my percentage. I don't necessarily try to reach 100 tracks or 200. Like I said, my job won't let me do it, but I feel like I need to be up there at 60%, upper 60%. I feel like it's a good number for an off-lead tracker. And so that's what I pay attention for myself. But I don't, like you, I don't advertise it because nobody else really cares. So
no, and I think one thing we need to do is change that mindset to the hunters as well. How many deer have you found? That's a question I hear a lot out of hunters, and I feel like it's because the tracking community has set that precedence.
Yeah.
When most of the time your unsuccessful tracks, quote unquote unsuccessful, is some of the best tracks that you go on. You learn more. You complete the story. You paint the picture for the hunter. And if there's a number you want to look at, I'd say total number of tracks more so than the recoveries. But like you said, that percentage tells all. If you're honest.
Yeah. That's my thoughts. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I think I recovered 48 deer last year. Had a recovery rate, so that's where I'm at. I'd have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that's it. But yeah. that's just where I'm at. But that's just for myself, kind of know where I'm at, and I don't. I mean, if it's a miss, I went on the track, it gets counted, and just.
Yep, I'm the same way. So you said something to me earlier today when we were talking, chatting on Messenger, that I really liked, and you said that running that camera has really allowed you to learn a lot about your dogs, and that same thing applies here. If you are honest with yourself about the numbers and you start tracking, you will learn a lot about you and your dogs. You know,
Yeah.
those percentages will tell you deer being found behind you. Yeah, all of that stuff paints a picture of where you're at and what you need to work on. That's where the numbers are important, not to boast, brag, or anything else. It should be for you to know what you need to work on.
Yep. Yep.
And Jeff Still says the day you don't learn something, this is the day you should quit. That's right. I was actually telling Dean earlier in Messenger. You know, I made a lot of mistakes, and you know, I shared this in PA. Hey, learn from my mistakes. Don't make them. You know, I'll tell you what I did wrong. You know, I have
Yeah.
nothing to hide. You know, I have made many mistakes throughout, you know, my tracking year. Gene Ferris says, seems like my bigger tips come when I don't find the deer. They get to see how hard we really work to find their deer. Stacy Frost says there's no fee in Tennessee either, just proof that you have a proven dog. Hey, we got Ralph back on with some good connection.
Sorry about that, guys. Can y'all repeat everything?
Yeah. So Matt Berger says, regarding new trackers, I think there's a difference between sharing information and giving advice. But I think it is okay to give certain advice in the right context. For example, giving advice to new people based on what you learned your first couple of years. I think what you are sharing, how it is presented in the context that it is shared matters. Would you agree? I agree. Michael Beck says, I've tracked for pumpkin roll. I'm not sure what pumpkin roll is. We don't have that down here.
What was that
Jeff,
question? Which question
what's that?
was it? Which question was it?
Oh, Michael Beck says, I've tracked for pumpkin roll.
No.
I don't know what that is.
You never had a pumpkin roll?
No, I never heard of a pumpkin roll.
Oh, my goodness. If it's the food, I'm assuming. You never know with Mike, but ooh, it's good.
Yeah. You know what it is, Kyle?
I've never heard of it.
I haven't either. So Jeff Still says, we charge for tracks, but we are subject to travel 5 to 6 hours for a track, as Iowa is short on trackers. We also won't let a deer go untracked if money is a concern to the potential client. Doing the right thing always comes back to you. And I agree. And like I said, I'm not against charging. You know, if you want to charge. Just have the right mindset of you're doing this to work your dogs and help hunters. And that should be the two most important things above money, which your comment right there says that, you know, you're doing it for the right reasons, you know. Let's see.
I know what it was a minute ago when I asked what was the question. It was Matthew Berger's question that he made. And in our apprenticeship program, I try to not come up with the advice. I let them hopefully walk themselves into the advice, trying to work it out to where they learn better if they come up with the idea rather than me just sitting here saying stuff. It comes across better. And I try to lead them into why should you need to do this or that, and just kind of, because you know a lot of times a situation will pop up and you know what's fixing to happen, or you know, and I try to get them to just come up with the idea themselves, and that helps a lot too, because they feel like they've worked themselves through a situation, and that's what I do a lot.
Yeah, I do the same. Michael Pritz asks, what's the Alabama page? Just picked up a piece of property in Barber County.
So there's two. There's the Alabama Blood Trailing Network, and then there's No Alabama. There's two really big ones. So.
Stacy Frost says, I keep a running total on my phone of tracks and recoveries or not, just so I know how the dogs are doing more than anything. And that's key, the numbers. It should tell you what you need to work on or not, or I shouldn't say not. You should always be working. I shared a post on the Mullins dog training page the other day about, your training never stops. If you think you've achieved excellence or perfection, you have more to work on than you realize. Yeah. I like this. Vicky Church says, we're part psychologists sometimes to help the hunter work through their mental process associated with injuring an animal. We know it is hurt and that is probably alive thanks to the dog. That's a pretty powerful statement right there, because that at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. And sometimes it doesn't go as planned, especially when you have someone that's drunk, belligerent. That's a whole nother topic, but helping someone get that closure, even if it's not a recovery, means a lot to people.
Painting that true picture of what happened, it lets them, get through the bad situation sometimes, and then boom, a week later they see it back on camera and everything came together. I mean, sometimes that's all you can do. It ain't no way we're going to find that deer.
No. And Mike Alguire says, and he's talking about numbers, that depends on the calls as well. I know myself and tons of others go regardless. Like last year, I had 13 non-recoveries in a row, and they were all due to property lines and back whacks or far forward brisket shots. And that's stuff that I notate. And if it's a property line, I remove that out of my calculations as far as what I'm looking at is what I need to work on. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about a property line. Now, does that count in my total numbers? Yes. But if I'm sitting down and I'm really nitpicking this stuff to see what I need to work on, I'm not going to count that as something against the dog or myself. TR Pate says, he's asking, how do y'all feel about the client or groups tagging along on the track? I'm thinking of limiting to one or two, thought about cutting out altogether. What's your thoughts on that, Kyle?
I usually, but if they get on my nerves, I'll leave them behind.
Yeah.
And they'll know the way back to the truck. So that's, most folks are fine. Worse, for the ones that track on lead, but my dogs are, I let them get out there 100, 200 yards, and then I'll start easing in behind them most of the time, So, as long as they'll stay either with me or behind me, it's no problem. If they start getting out ahead of the dogs, especially, then I'll say wait right here, and I never come back.
Yeah. I guess I'm getting a little more impatient the older I get as far as dealing with people like that. I shouldn't say older. The further along in tracking years that I get, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. And if we have 6 or 8 people tagging along and it becomes too much, I finally just say, hey, I'm done. I hate to sound this way, but I feel like I don't need this track. I just came out here to help you, and you're wasting my time, and there's 10 other people waiting on me.
Yep.
And guess what? You're on that do not track list. Depending on if they listen or not. At the end of the day, you as the handler controls the track. And if they can't accept that, don't track for them.
Yep.
Michael Bragg says, I implemented the VIR on the Nose to Ground Alabama Wounded Game Recovery page, which is veteran, intermediate, rookie, I believe. It's not perfect, but it gives the hunters a starting point as to what type of handlers they're getting. It's based on information from handlers. I'm always looking to improve our page. Mike, Michael Bragg actually shared that with us, and we started using that in Florida. We modified it. We modified it to fit us, and we're actually using it in Georgia now. And basically, what we're doing is it's a point system, and you get X amount of points for each category, and that's where you rank in the system. Well, we also do that to, I guess you'd say, to arrange the trackers in order based on those points on our list for each county. And two things it does, in my opinion. For one, your more veteran trackers that have the higher points, they're the ones that are more than likely going to answer the phone. They're also the ones that are probably too busy to take the track, but they're the ones that'll make sure that they get the hunter's help. So it works out really good. I mean, I'm at the top of the list on just about, I think, probably every county I'm in because I've been doing it so long and go on so many tracks. But honestly, I don't take many tracks from the list, but I'll answer my phone and I'll get them some help from somewhere.
Yeah.
What's your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm same way. That phone never quits ringing. Don't mean I'm taking the calls, but I'm shuffling, dispatching, calling somebody else to try to get them the tracker, and that's where the network comes in too. To where everybody's trying to help that call that came in. So
yeah, than I can get to, especially when hunting gets really good, around the rut, you'll do for sure. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm not critical of it. I mean, I think it's good intention, and I think it does help. I don't know of a good way to make it perfect, So I think the purpose of it is to give the hunter the best opportunity to be successful, which is what we all want, And so, I mean, I don't know if it's perfect, but I also don't know of a way to make it perfect. If you ask me, I have a suggestion, everybody else would have another suggestion, So you get way off in the weeds, but I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. I mean, we've tried many different things over the years, and I think what Michael Bragg sent to us was pretty good. Like I said, we modified it some for us, and it's worked out pretty good. And I'll tell you, one thing it's done is there was people that would be on the top of a list just because they've been on the list for say 10 years, but they don't ever go on tracks. And they don't answer their phone. And then you have, say, 3 people in a row for that county, and none of them will answer their phone. Well, then the hunters get discouraged and like, well, I'm not going to keep calling, and then they won't use the tracker again. So I think that has been probably one of the biggest benefits is it's better customer service for the hunting community. Because those people answer the phone.
And I think that's why so many trackers. I don't want to say division because I don't really feel like there's a ton of division, but folks are really passionate about it, even when they disagree or have different opinions. Because when something does go bad and it makes all the trackers look bad, I think that's why people care so much. It's not like it just affects one tracker and that's it. If hunter calls and a hunter and a tracker stands him up, or something like that, or a tracker comes, and we don't have this much in Alabama. They've been cold, I think, recently, but I mean, we've seen it where a tracker drunk, again, they got cold from the community, but it makes all trackers look bad, and that hunter goes and tells all of his hunting buddies, I'll never use a tracking dog again because of that bad experience. So I think many trackers are so passionate, I guess, about their feelings towards some of it.
Yeah. So since we're on the same topic, I'm skipping over some comments and questions. We will come back to those, but I'm trying to stay on topic here before we do. And I know we're getting late into this, but it's rolling pretty good. So if you guys need to go, I understand it.
I got all night, brother.
Brandon C says, "Who keeps track of honesty on the point system?" So Brandon, I'll tell you, as you start seeing these, like we do an application process, and it's an online application. Let me tell you, you can tell real quick. When you start looking at these applications, they come in, like, for instance, there was one where the guy said he went on 15 tracks that year without a dog, but he has 10 years experience and his dog's 6 months old. Yeah, you know, there's some discrepancies there, or for instance, you know, you go as far as one person says that they went on 110 tracks, and you go search their name on Facebook, and they said they had 96 recoveries. Well, there's a red flag. So all of this, it all comes out. I mean, and you know, your dishonest people is going to be dishonest, but I will say, and Ralph, you'll probably agree with me on this, the vast majority are honest.
Yep.
You know, maybe 5% or less we see some discrepancies on. So
I would say some of the ones we have that are not as, not honest are the ones half the time you got problems with anyway.
Right.
So they've been on the radar already.
Oh yeah. Darren Miner says, we actually got so busy last year, we hired and trained a call taker to take calls while we were tracking. We had our phones forwarded to the call taker. We returned calls when we could. You know, and that, again, I mean, it just goes to show your more veteran teams are going to do things to make sure that you're getting people taken care of. And even then, I can tell you, Darren refers a lot out. You know, it's not just about him getting the calls or his.
Man, we found something Brandy can do.
You ain't kidding. She's not here. She's not hearing this, so we can talk about that. So I wanted to go back up. Jeff still asked a question about cameras. What cameras do we use? And we had this discussion today, Kyle. You said you use GoPro, correct?
Yeah. I bought mine used off Marketplace because I knew I was going to just beat the life out of it before it was over with. But yeah, GoPro is what I use. GoPro 8 and newer have awesome built-in stabilization features. So I don't know that that's the best. That's just what I have. So,
are you having troubles with yours running hot? Because I've got 210s, and man, I can't even. It might be me with them being close to my body, but man, I can't get through a track without them cutting off from running hot.
Yeah. I have before, yeah, but I mean most of the time our season starts later, you know, so it's not near as hot in our season. But yeah, I mean if I was going to run it from right, I'm sure they probably would. But again, that's just what I bought. I don't claim to know what's best. I'm not advertising for GoPro. That's just what I bought. Yeah.
So mine overheats. We were running some test lines with Randy Vick last year. Actually, one of them's on our American Blood Trackers YouTube, and the GoPro kept overheating, and I was getting frustrated. And we were in a swamp running this line. I was literally dunking my GoPro into the water to cool it off so that I can get another 5-10 minutes of video. And I reached out to Shane Simpson, and I said, Shane, man, my camera's overheating like crazy. What, do do you have any recommendations? He said, yes, DJ Osmo. He said, doesn't overheat as bad. And I did buy one. And so far, I haven't had any overheating issues with it. Now, I did get some advice on the GoPro that has helped, turning off the GPS on it. That has helped with heat. Because it's not always you tracking your location on there.
Yeah, if you cut off the GPS and Wi-Fi stuff, that helps a lot, and it saves your battery a little bit too.
Yeah, you'll go from 30-minute battery life to an hour.
Yeah, and like 30 frame rate per second, as opposed to like 60 or something. So if you keep your frame rate down a little lower, that helps as well.
Yeah, because now today's software, there's so much editing resources and tools on the backside to help correct that stuff.
Yeah.
So Julia asks, how often do trackers show up and have to deal with a drunk hunter? What's the best way to safely extract yourself from the situation?
Get in the truck and go home.
Yeah.
My patience is pretty thin for that.
Yeah. I made them. I think I'm remembering back, I've only had one that got bad, and I had to make the people keep him at the truck while we went in the woods. He was also wanting to carry a gun, and it's either stay here or I'm going home. And they kept him there. So it was good.
Yeah, I just anymore I'll leave. I might give them a chance to start, and if they get out of hand, I load my dogs up and I leave, and then I call all of my fellow trackers and say, "Hey, don't go." Randy, talking about referring tracks. Randy says, every year I say I'm not going to refer any more tracks because lots of times the tracker that you refer to will stand up the hunter and such, but I still end up referring. And that happens. Me and Randy, we refer back and forth a bunch. And I can tell you, I'm not going to stand up a hunter. Randy knows that. But he and I, we stay so busy. The last few years, we call each other every year and try to refer stuff, and we're both just so busy. But we try to get in some tracks together every now and then. But it's just gotten, like I said, it's gotten so busy. And I will say this: we have way more trackers now in our area. There's a lot, and it hasn't slowed down. So, and I know I'm bouncing back to the mentorship thing. Don't think that helping your fellow trackers is going to cost you tracks, because it's going to create more exposure for the tracking community, and you're not going to have a shortage of tracks. I can promise you. I've been running some numbers, and based on hunting license sales in the majority of states versus the number of trackers. Now, this is an average. On average, there's 2,000 licensed hunters. This is on the low end. 2,000, I'd say 2,000 to 2,500 licensed hunters to every tracker. And in some states like Pennsylvania, they've got 900,000 licensed hunters, or 950,000 licensed hunters, and maybe 670 trackers in the state.
Wow.
There's no shortage there.
Yeah, and I mean the results proven. I don't know that I can take any more tracks. We got more apprentices coming up, and just can't keep up with it. So, and we got way more trackers than we did 3 years ago. I mean, we're just a ton of them up here, and it's still, we just can't, and all of us are busy. It isn't like somebody sitting at home. We call around and we don't have time. We're all slammed. I mean, we're going to get to you, but man, it's some long days trying to work everything in.
Yeah. And one thing I want to touch on, and this is a problem everywhere, not just Florida or Georgia. The hunters are impatient. They don't care about how much experience you have. They don't care about certifications you have. They care about who gets there the quickest. And, you know, as we all know as trackers, time is on our side or on their side. Quicker is not better. And in most cases, let me rephrase that. And I'm to the point now, if you want to start calling around, you don't want to wait, I'm not coming. Don't call me to clean up the mess. I used to. I mean, I used to go behind other people that went in too early and recover the deer. Now I'm like, you know what? You want to call someone and get whoever gets there the quickest, learn your lesson. Good luck. Yeah. You know, my patience have ran thin on that.
Yep.
You have that problem in Alabama, Kyle?
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it's just because it's part of the growing pains of tracking, you know, just so many more people in it. But yeah, you can't hardly shot deer 12 hours and get the track, you know, which I'm like you. I mean, I don't even like to track in the daytime. That gets me. I'd prefer to track at night. Anyhow. But yeah, if they don't want to wait, they can call whoever, you know, just, you know, and it happens all the time, you know, but yeah, it's getting to be it's worse every year, I think.
Yeah. And it does two things. One is it'll get you on your do not track list. And the second all, it'll get you on the I'm not going to refer any tracks to you if you're one of the trackers that's out there trying to jump the gun on everybody. So that can hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I told one the other day that good news travels fast, but bad news travels faster.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So if you get labeled as a bad apple, it's hard to turn that around, you know. So you can,
yeah.
but people don't forget it, you know.
Yeah, and especially with social media, drama sells, and you know, people they get on there, they want it. Everything's drama. I hate social media, but there is a lot of good aspects to social media, you know, and if someone can find something to create drama, to draw attention, or they're going to use it. And, you know, sometimes I'll fall into it and start arguing back, and I shouldn't, you know, like Ralph always says, you don't always have to respond. And I've came a long ways the last few years, but,
you know, oddly enough, I didn't even have Facebook. 5 or 6 year hiatus from Facebook, and I was tracking. I tracked 2 or 3 years, or maybe more than that, but without an active Facebook account. And then so one of my tracking buddies taught me, and they're like, "Well, you really need to get on the tracking list," you know. And so I logged on to Facebook just for deer tracking. And now you get all that comes with Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you came back?
Oddly enough, I really don't even get many tracks off, you know, like most of my tracks nowadays, probably most of them are direct calls, you know. Yeah. But here I am sucked into the social media thing, you know.
Answer that Brandon C. asked a couple questions.
That's what I was going to go to next. And then I had an anonymous question come in that I really want to touch on too. So Brandon C., how many nighttime tracks do you typically do a year, Kenny? And how do you talk the hunter into waiting until daylight? So I used to love tracking at night, but I have a bad issue with falling asleep behind the wheel. So my nighttime tracks have significantly decreased. I still get a ton of calls, but I'm gonna be honest. I'll getting to where if you don't call me by 8 o'clock at night, you're gonna wait till morning, or you're gonna call someone else. I'll help you get someone else, but I just can't unless I have someone to go with me. I can't do it anymore. And I'm just honest with them. Hey, your meat's not gonna spoil. I'll be there tomorrow. Or if you don't want to wait, I'll help get you someone. And
Yeah.
you guys can chime in on that if you want while I read this real quick.
I love tracking at night, so I'd rather track all night unless the situation warrants waiting, giving it some wait time till the next morning, and then
Yeah.
I'll deal with it that way. But I'm like you, Kyle. I absolutely love tracking at night. So
It's peaceful, and a lot of these hunting clubs and things, they may be 5,000, 10,000 acres, and I've never had an issue. It's never been a problem. But I just worry about my dogs, I've got a pretty good handle on them, but I mean, there's less traffic at night. If one did get in a road or something,
Yep.
should be less hunters in the woods, so if there's a big hunting club, I can't guarantee, and they most of the time can't guarantee me that every hunter there is aware I'm coming, and I just don't want a mission where someone shoots one of my dogs, we're gradually getting away from those days, but it still happens sometimes. So
Yeah.
it just, nighttime's the way to go for me, and I work during the day, and so then I'll track at night, too.
Yeah, the evening tracks, that's easy. The morning tracks is when that gets tough to me from the work aspect, or trying to give them enough time to wait, because you're going to go through the hot part of the day. So that's a juggling act there. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I do prefer to track at night. I can't travel very far anymore. I don't know how to overcome that. It's I'd rather get up early in the morning, even if it's 3 or 4 in the morning. But don't get me wrong, I still go on plenty of tracks at night. It's just that's when I'm going to have someone with me, and luckily I have John that goes on pretty much every track with me. Okay, so something here had an anonymous situation slash question. So an individual is sharing a scenario of a person that started tracking, say, a few years ago, and got discouraged due to lack of help from other trackers, and acceptance from other trackers, and then they had issues with hunters. They quit. Now they're trying to get back into tracking, and they're having the same issues where, some groups will not accept them until they prove themselves, and they're struggling to prove themselves to get into the tracking world. So what do you do? And that's why I like how we do things with that apprenticeship program. You're not just being pushed away. We need to accept these people and help them. It's sad to even read that and know that this person was trying hard and not being accepted. That's like bullying at school. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that.
What state? You said they might have been. I don't know. Do you know what state?
Yeah, they want to remain anonymous.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's any state that I've tracked in.
Yeah. They may not be in North Alabama, but if they are, they can call me. Look me up on Facebook or whatever. I'd be glad to help as far as that goes. We track. There's all of us in North Alabama. We're pretty. I ain't gonna say all of us, but most of us are pretty close because, probably like trackers in your area, you pass tracks back and forth. You just become friends, track together. And so we help a lot of folks up here in my area. I mean, Blaine Willingham's got dogs scattered halfway across North Alabama, just helping trackers get started. And I've got a few myself. I mean, I've loaned out dogs. I'll take folks, with me. So we do that. It's not. I mean, we don't necessarily get on Facebook and tell everybody we done it, but I would like to think there'd be somebody that would help them.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I'm the same way. I've loaned my dogs out to many trackers, and in fact, Kyle Parks last year, he had something going on with his dog. He thought, so I told him, I said, "Hey, man, bring me your dog and take Dixie." He's like, "I ain't taking your best dog." I said, "No, take her. You're busy. The rut's wide open. I got other dogs. Take her." And I've done that many times. So we had another anonymous comment come in through text message. It says, when another tracker refers me to one of their repeat customers within their area, I try to be professional and always say to call them first. And if they can't get to you, they'll call me. Don't hand out business cards and stuff like that. You'll get more referrals if you're a professional. And, I'm the same way. In fact, I got a call last year to take a track in pretty much 10 minutes from Randy Vick's house. And this happens a lot because we're so close. And Randy and we've tracked the same areas for so many years. And, I've referred calls to him near me, and he's referred calls to me near him. And Randy will tell you, anytime that I get a track near his house, the first thing I do is call Randy and say, "Hey, are you available? I just got a call in your area." And honestly, most of the time he says, "Hey, I'm pretty backed up. If you can take it, take it. If not, we'll add it to the list." I personally feel that's how things should go. I've had people drive 2 hours, 2.5 hours to track 500 yards from my front door.
Yeah.
Why? Just be respectful. I mean, I'm not saying it's a territorial thing, but why are you going to drive 2.5 hours to track 500 yards from someone's front door that's available?
Yeah. Yeah. What I've told a lot of folks, especially the last couple of years, and I've probably told some recently, but if someone will ask themselves the question, is as a tracker, is what you're doing, whether the hunter calls you or you take the track or whatever you're doing on the track, is whatever you're doing giving the hunter the best opportunity to be successful. And I can honestly say that about myself. Like I said, that was why I tracked for 2 or 3 years. I ever got on a list, of a tracking page, maybe longer than that. But I just really thought, especially like tracking with Brian Ham and some of these others, like to me, if the deer could be got, they could absolutely, and so I just didn't really feel that way when I first started about myself. And so I didn't take, I was very choosy when I did. And I think that's maybe what's missing, with folks getting in it, that maybe they don't put the hunter's best interest, so my thoughts on it.
Yeah. And so John Hockaday asked a question here. What if you're personally requested by the hunter? And honestly, a lot of times that is the case. And I'm always up front with the hunter. I'll say, "Hey, I can come, but there's people closer. And if you're willing to allow them the opportunity, I would like to give them the opportunity before I commit to it." And a lot of the times they'll say yes, and sometimes they will say no. I'd prefer for you to come, and in that case, I'm going. But the majority of the time, that's not the case.
A lot of times I'll invite the other guy to go with me.
Yes.
Me knowing I'm going to go, but I'll invite somebody to go with me.
And last year, Randy Vick, I called him on one. John and I was going up there, not far from Randy. I said, "Hey, do you want this track?" He said, "Honestly, Kenny, I've been tracking all morning. I'm a little tired." He said, "But if you're okay with it, I'd love to come tag along." And I said, "Sure, come on." And all three of us went out there and we tracked the deer together.
Yep.
You remember a night last year, we were at a meeting in Lake City, and I got a call that come in right down the road. and I think it was me and Jason Bell. And I said, "Hey, man, that's right down the road from Ernie Johns. Let's call him." So all three of us went on the track, and he was tickled to come track with us. It's just that. I think a lot of it is track greed. They just got to take it. They just can't stand it, and they got to take it. We'll take it and invite somebody. They do it. They'll do it with me, and I don't know. It's a fun part of the track. If you're not that way, you're going to end up tracking by yourself a whole lot too, because nobody's going to want to be with you.
Right. And Chris Wilson says, I felt horrible about taking that track in Lake Park last year since it was in Georgia. I didn't even think about you being close. And I wasn't upset. I told Chris, I said, hey, man, I was right there. And I told him, I said, man, it don't bother me. Go take the track. But I was actually tracking very close to there. But to be honest, I was tired, but I kind of giving him a little hard time about it too. Hey, man, what are you doing? But, and like you said, most of the time I'll invite people. I've invited a lot of people. Ernie Johns, I got a track right down the road from his house, and the hunter wanted me. I tracked for him before Ernie was tracking, and I called her. I said, well, hey, there's another tracker that lives near there. Do you mind if he goes with us? And the hunter says, no, but I want you there. And Ernie came along, and I told Ernie, I said, hey, turn your dog out first. And his dog said that, this deer is not dead, and the hunter just didn't want to accept it. So I turned my dogs out. We jumped the deer, and they couldn't stop it. And then the hunter was satisfied. But, and then the next time that person called, they were willing to allow Ernie to go. Like Michael Bragg says here, you got to be humble enough to do that. And sadly, most trackers are not. And I hate that. But again, Michael, I want to say this. A lot of this, it's pretty much quit since we've implemented that apprenticeship program. The networking and the bonds have grown so tight that it's taken care of the majority of it. Would you agree, Ralph?
Oh yeah. Yep. Because when we didn't do it, that was the experience level that caused us the most trouble with people trying to jump ahead of track, just get them. Didn't matter. No wait times mattered, anything. They were just going, trying to, people call it stealing the track. They were just trying to get ahead of everything so bad, nothing else mattered. And yeah, that's stopped. That has, and if we see it, we're gonna control that also, especially out of the new trackers.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's helped tremendously.
Well, guys, we've been on here an hour and 45 minutes. I could talk tracking all night, but Kyle, I appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
And this led us down some roads that we don't talk about a lot, and it was a pretty good show, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your insight. And if you guys don't know Kyle, reach out to him because he's a great guy. Like I said, we've talked a lot over the years, and I know you've helped a lot of people, Kyle, and I know you're willing to help. Just like you offered for that anonymous person to reach out to you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You, Kyle.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, anybody be glad to. I don't claim to know much. I don't claim to be the best, but I doubt many people have more fun than I do. So,
amen.
Be glad to help.
Well, we'd love to have you on again sometime, and like I said, we appreciate it. And I think we got to everyone's questions. If I missed any, we'll just shoot us a message and we'll get it done. But I got to be up early, heading to Iowa for an upcoming event. be getting there Thursday, and we got a bunch of tests on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday we're doing the seminar. So with that said, I'm gonna hop off of here, and thanks again, guys.
All right. Talk to y'all later. See you.
Yep. Thanks for having me. See you. Good luck this year.
Thanks,
Same
you
to
too.
you.